This presentation is on a story called The Alligator Analogy. You may want to take notes on the story because you're going to have to participate in the discussion board based on the story, and there are several people whose names you will need to know in order to participate in the discussion. You may want to take notes on a piece of paper, or you could also use the slides in Blackboard that do not have audio. So once upon a time, there was a couple named Mary and John who had been married. And in this story I'm going to tell you, you will also hear about Josh, Sally, Captain Bob, and Stephen. So about 6 years ago, Mary and John got married, and they had a great relationship. Everything was going very well until the last 6 months. And during the last 6 months, John has become very distant from Mary. He doesn't talk to her much. They don't do much anymore. They really hardly ever have sex. And Mary's very distraught about it. And she asked John to go to counseling, and John refused. She's asked him several times to go to counseling, and he just refuses to go. So the relationship is getting more and more strained, and they're becoming more and more distant. During this time, Mary met Josh, and there was a strong sexual attraction, and Mary and Josh began to have an affair. Every Tuesday night, Mary tells her husband that she's going to school to take some classes, but in reality, she catches the ferry and goes across the river to see Josh. One weekend, when Sally is going for a walk with her best friend, Mary, Mary tells Sally all about the relationship with John, how it's falling apart, and how she's involved with another man. Mary asks Sally what she should do because Mary feels guilty. She still loves John, but she also feels very distant from him and is not sure he loves her anymore. Sally tells Mary that she cannot help her make that decision. Sally tells Mary that Mary's going to have to decide what is best for her and then act on it. Sally also tells Mary she will support her in any decision she makes, but that Mary really has to consider what's best for her and then move forward. So every Tuesday, like I said, Mary catches the ferry, goes across the river, and Captain Bob is the person who runs the ferry. So that next week, Mary gets on the ferry, goes across the river with Captain Bob so she can go see Josh. While Josh and Mary are together, they get into a heated argument, and it gets very, very loud, and Mary grabs her coat and leaves. When she gets to the ferry with Captain Bob, she realizes she does not have her purse, her money, her credit cards, or her phone because she left her purse at Josh's apartment. She asks Captain Bob to take her home, and Captain Bob tells Mary he will take her home, but only if she has sex with him. Mary says to Captain Bob, "I can't believe you're saying this. I ride the ferry every week. You know I'm good for the money, and I'll pay you tomorrow." And Captain Bob says, "Mary, you either have to pay me with money or you have to pay me with sex." So Mary goes back to Josh's apartment, knocks on the door. She thinks she can hear him in there. She hears the TV, but he refuses to answer the door. She bangs for several minutes. She sits down on the steps and waits, bangs again, and she really does think he's in there, but he's not answering the door for her. So she goes back to Captain Bob. She pleads her case again. She tells him, "You know, I come here every week. You know I'm good for the money. You've got to take me home. I've got to get home so I can get money to pay you." And Captain Bob repeats himself and says, "Mary, I have a service. You need to pay for it. You can pay with money or you can pay with sex, but the only way I'm taking you home is if I get some type of payment." Mary can't believe it. She just cannot believe this is happening. So she says to Captain Bob, "You have got to be kidding me. I cannot believe you're doing this to me. There has to be some other way to get home." And Captain Bob tells Mary, "Yes, You can walk all the way around, and he shows her which direction to go, but he warns her that if she goes that way, there have been several rapes along that path. Mary considers her options. She knows she has to have sex with Captain Bob, or she can take the risk of walking around the path that he shows her in order to get home. And Mary decides to take her chances and walks the path. On the way, Mary is raped by someone named Stephen. Here's the question that you will be discussing in this week's discussion board. For your first post in the discussion board, you must take the 6 people in the story, Mary and John who are married, Sally her best friend, Josh her lover, Captain Bob, and Stephen, and you must list them from most responsible to what happened to Mary to least responsible for what happened to Mary. Number 1 will be the most responsible, 2 is second most responsible, 3 is third most responsible, all the way down till you get to number 6 for the person who is least responsible for what happened to Mary. Once you get in the discussion board and you make that posting, you will receive further directions on what the rest of the discussion board will look like. Good luck, and I look forward to reading your discussion boards this week.